Right, for more on this, we're joined by Chief Operating Officer, Debt Rescue South Africa, Annaline van der Poel. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here on the SABC.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Annaline, ultimately, what impact will the steep November repo rate hike of 75 basis points have on South Africans, especially those who, again, are paying off debt on their property, cars, and even credit cards?
It's going to be horrible. The reality is that we knew it was coming. We've been expecting it. We've been watching what the inflation has been doing the past couple of months, and it's inevitable that this was going to happen. But the reality is, for consumers, there's just nowhere left for them to cut. On the one side, they have the impact of the actual inflation on their normal expenses in their budget. So on the one side, they're seeing the cost of living rising on things like food and fuel and transport and all those factors. And on the other side of their budget, they've got their monthly debt repayments, and this just keeps going up because of the impact of the interest rate. So it's incredibly, incredibly difficult for the average consumer out there.
So speaking about the rough ride ahead, perhaps you could talk to the main drivers of inflation that contributed to the steep rate hike decision.
Well, there's been a couple of factors. Obviously, we know that transport's been one, the cost of food has been another. And these are things that obviously we feel in our pockets immediately every month. And the concern is for the past 6 months, for pretty much as this financial year has started, we've been on the outer bounds of what the Reserve Bank wants us to achieve, which is the 3 to 6%. We've been above that. We've seen in the last 3 months, it's been 7.6, 7.5, back to 7.6. We know this is international, similar kind of trends of seeing the inflation being this high. And even more worrying is we know that on the international front, they are preparing for the possibility of recessions next year. So we all know that what happens on the international market, inevitably we are going to feel on our side. And therefore, we know that they've marked down our growth potential for next year. That's going to affect employment. So it's definitely, 2023 is going to be a very tough year as well.
So then, Annaline, on the back of what you've just echoed, do you agree with Governor Lesetja Kganyago's approach to managing inflation, that the central bank will continue to rely on interest rates to bring down inflation in both the short to medium term?
Well, the Reserve Bank's core function at the end of the day is to make sure that our exchange rates and everything remains stable as well. And then through that, they have to monitor what inflation does. And whatever inflation does, they have to take the necessary actions. And those actions are inevitably, going to be interest rate hikes. We are hoping that by middle of next year, it'll start stabilizing and with a bit of luck actually start moving down after that. But it's very difficult to forecast right now, because we know as much as we have our local impact and factors that are affecting this right now, we know we've got a global impact. We have to look at what's happening in the rest of the world. We have to look at what's happening with the Ukraine conflict, with the US and UK's local impact on their economy, because inevitably we are going to feel the effect of that. And it's looking quite bleak right now.
Absolutely. And then just then in conclusion, what advice do you then have for people, many of whom have nowhere left to cut on their budget after, you have relentless cost-saving measures, cost-saving increases? What advice do you have for them?
Well, I think if you've now honestly had a look at your budget and you've gone through everything and you have made every change you possibly can, when you're in a position where you're still sitting with debt on the other side that you have to service as well, is to look towards something like debt counseling. This is a legal process to assist consumers who are over indebted, who are struggling to repay their debts, as well as manage their necessary living expenses as well, whereby they get legal protection, they can repay their debt in a more affordable manner, albeit over a slightly longer period of time. But at least they're honoring their debt obligations, they're preventing future legal action against them, maintaining their assets. So yeah, definitely make sure that you are looking at all the options out there and seek help before you end up in a difficult situation.
Annaline, thank you very much for joining us here on the SABC. Annaline van der Poel is the Chief Operating Officer at Debt Rescue South Africa, really weighing in on the impact that after the Reserve Bank's decision to raise the repo rate by 75 basis points to 7% this week. So we'll leave that conversation there. Thank you very much again to her for our time. We're going to take a look